My mother didn't even flinch when I walked in. She was perched on the edge of my kitchen stool like she belonged there, one leg crossed over the other, nails perfect, lipstick fresh. My husband Philip stood by the sink with a dish towel in his hands, frozen. The overhead light made the whole scene look too bright, too sharp, like a stage. "Just tell me you understand," my mother said softly, and she reached out and slid her fingers over Philip's forearm. I stopped so hard my shoulder bumped the door frame. Philip's head snapped toward me. His eyes widened, like he'd been caught in a storm he didn't invite. I heard my own voice come out thin. "What is this?" My mother smiled. Not guilty. Not surprised. Amused. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, like I was interrupting something small and harmless. "We're just talking." I looked at Philip. "Move." He stepped back, like he'd been burned. I didn't. My mother cut him off with a laugh that made my stomach turn. "Don't act dramatic. You always do this." Always. The word landed like a punch because it carried every marriage I'd ever had inside it. My hands shook as I pulled my phone from my pocket. "Get out." My mother's smile sharpened. "Or what?" And before I could answer, Philip whispered, "She's been doing this for weeks." The air left my lungs. "Weeks." I repeated, like it was a word in a language I didn't understand. My mother tilted her head, watching my face the way some people watch a slow train crash. Philip took a step toward me, palms open, and I hated that instinct, that urge to explain himself. "I didn't respond the way she wanted," he said quickly. "I told you I would handle it." "You didn't tell me it was weeks," I said. My mother rolled her eyes. "Because you're fragile. You make everything bigger than it is." The room narrowed. I could smell the lemon soap on the counter. I could hear the refrigerator hum. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I had promised myself after the second marriage collapsed that I would never be caught off guard again. Yet here I was, standing in my own house, watching my mother test another boundary. I lifted my phone. "You need to leave. Now." My mother's gaze flicked to the phone. "You're recording." "I'm done protecting you," I said. Her smile vanished. For the first time, something ugly flashed across her face. Rage, not embarrassment. "You think anyone will believe you?" she hissed. And in that moment, I realized she wasn't afraid of being wrong. She was afraid of being exposed. Months earlier, I'd sat across from Philip at this same kitchen table and told him the secret I'd swallowed for years. Not as a dramatic confession. As a warning. "My mother," I said, staring at the wood grain because looking at his face felt too painful, "has slept with every man I married." Silence filled the room so completely I could hear a car pass outside. Philip blinked, processing, then shook his head like he was clearing fog. "That can't be true." "It is," I said. "And before you ask how I know, because they admitted it. Eventually. All three." His jaw tightened. "Why would she do that to you?" That was the question that always made me feel stupid, because the answer was cruel and simple. "Because she can," I said. "Because she likes winning. And because she hates that I can have something that isn't hers." Philip reached for my hand, but his touch felt careful. "We'll set boundaries," he said. "We'll keep distance." "She doesn't respect boundaries," I replied. "She respects consequences." He didn't like that word. Consequences. People never do until they need them. Still, he promised me. He promised he would never be a part of it. And I believed him, because I needed to. Which was how I ended up months later, standing in the doorway, phone raised, watching my mother try again. After that warning, Philip became polite in a way that was almost stiff. He answered my mother's calls on speaker. He kept his replies short. He avoided being alone with her. If she came over, he found reasons to step outside or stay in the room with me. My mother responded the way she always did when someone didn't bend. She tried to make them feel guilty for having boundaries. She brought gifts. Then she brought concerns. She leaned into the role of caring parent like a costume she could put on and take off. "Philip seems stressed," she told me once, patting my hand like I was the child. It would help if you weren't so tense. I almost laughed. Instead, I watched. I remembered. And I noticed the small things. The way she'd angle her body toward Philip. The way she'd laugh at jokes that weren't funny. The way she'd find excuses to text him directly instead of going through me. One afternoon, Philip handed me his phone without a word. On the screen was a message thread with my mother. "You looked good today. I miss the way you listen. We should talk without her. Just once." I stared at the words until they blurred. Philip said quietly. I didn't reply. My throat tightened. "She's testing you." "She's testing you," he corrected. "To see if you'll doubt me." That's when we made a decision I never wanted to make in my own marriage. We stopped hoping she'd stop. And we started collecting proof. We didn't tell anyone. Not my friends. Not his family. Not even my brother Ken, at first. Because I'd learned something the hard way. People want to believe a mother is a mother. They want to believe the problem must be a misunderstanding, a grudge, exaggeration. They don't want the truth if the truth is too ugly to fit into their idea of family. So we documented quietly. Philip turned on message backups. He screenshot everything. He refused phone calls and asked her to text so he wouldn't forget details. He kept his tone neutral, never flirting, never encouraging. Just giving her enough rope to show exactly who she was. And my mother took it greedily. She began to escalate, not slowly, but with confidence. Like she'd done this so many times she already knew the steps. "Come over when she's at work. You deserve someone who understands you. I'm not like her. You know that." I felt like I was reading my own life being rewritten by her. One evening, she texted him an address. A small rental property across town I didn't recognize. Just for an hour. "I won't tell." Philip showed me, and the anger in his face was real. "This is not normal." "No," I said. "This is her." We agreed on one final step. One controlled moment, where she couldn't twist the story later. He replied, "1 hour. Talk only." My mother's response came instantly. "Good. Don't tell her. She'll ruin it like she ruins everything." I set my phone down slowly, and my stomach dropped, because I realized she was no longer flirting. She was declaring war. The day of the meeting, Philip didn't dress differently. That was important. No special effort. No signals. Just the same jeans and jacket he wore to run errands. We weren't going to play her fantasy. We were going to capture her reality. He wore a small audio recorder in his inner pocket. The kind you'd assume only existed in crime shows. Except this wasn't fiction. This was my life. I stayed parked across the street in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. I could see the front door of the rental unit and the thin slice of hallway through a window. My mother arrived 10 minutes early. She stepped out of her car like she was going to dinner. Heels, perfume, hair done. She checked her lipstick in the mirror, then walked in with a confidence that made my skin crawl. Philip went in at the agreed time. For the first few minutes, nothing moved. Time stretched. Then the curtain shifted. My mother's silhouette leaned in. My breath stopped. I watched Philip step back. Even from across the street, I recognized the stiff line of his body, the refusal. The barrier. The door flew open a moment later. My mother burst out first, face twisted, eyes bright with fury and something close to panic. She looked around like she expected the world to support her. Like she expected an audience to clap. Philip followed, jaw tight, not touching her, not guiding her, just letting her storm away. She spun, pointing at him. "You think she's worth it?" she shouted. Philip's voice was low but firm. "Leave me alone." My mother laughed. "Sharp. Ugly. She'll never keep you." She couldn't keep any of them. Then she stormed toward her car. I should have felt relief. Instead, dread crept up my spine, because I knew that tone. It was the tone she used when she didn't get what she wanted. And she never accepted losing quietly. I followed at a distance. I told myself it was to make sure she didn't do something reckless, that I still had some thin thread of responsibility left, even after everything she'd done. But the truth was darker. I was terrified she would control the story before I could. My mother's car swerved as she pulled out. Too fast. Too aggressive. She wasn't just driving. She was punishing the road for refusing her. Philip got into the passenger seat beside me, breathing hard. He pulled the recorder out and set it in my palm. "Did you get it?" I asked. He nodded once. "Everything." I should have been satisfied. Proof. Truth. Protection. But my phone buzzed, and my stomach flipped when I saw the name. Ken. My brother. I answered, and his voice was tight. "Where are you?" "In the car," I said. "Why?" He exhaled sharply. "Mom's headed toward the highway. She was screaming on the phone. Said you set her up. Said Philip attacked her." My blood went cold. "That's a lie." "I know," Ken said. "But she's making noise. And you know how she is when she's angry." I stared through the windshield, watching taillights blur. "I'm not chasing her," I said, forcing the words out. "I'm done chasing her." Ken was quiet for a beat. Then, "Okay. Then listen. Save everything. Don't delete a thing. Because she's about to turn this into something bigger." I barely had time to absorb that when another call came in. An unknown number. I answered, and a stranger's voice said, "Is this her daughter?" "Yes," I whispered. "There's been an accident," the voice said. "Your mother's car was involved. She's being transported to the hospital." My hands went numb around the phone. The proof in my lap suddenly felt like a lit match. And I didn't yet know who it would burn. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Ken met us at the entrance, face tight, eyes scanning me like he was checking whether I was still standing. He didn't hug me. He didn't have to. The look he gave me said he understood exactly what this was. The waiting area was already full of family. Aunts. Cousins. People I hadn't spoken to in months. And the moment they saw me, the atmosphere changed. It went sharp. It went cold. My aunt stood up first. "How could you?" I blinked. "How could I what?" "You pushed her," another voice snapped. "You humiliated her. You drove her to this." I looked around, stunned by how quickly they had accepted a story without asking for facts. Philip stepped closer to me, steady and quiet. My aunt jabbed a finger toward him. "And you? How dare you treat her like that? She's your elder." Ken stepped forward. "Stop," he said. "You don't even know what happened." "Oh, we know," my cousin said, eyes gleaming with righteous outrage. "She said you set a trap. She said you were both cruel." I felt something in my chest crack. Not heartbreak this time, but clarity. My mother, lying in a hospital bed, still found a way to aim the blame at me. Ken turned to me and lowered his voice. "She's awake. She's talking." "Talking to who?" I asked. He grimaced. "To the police." Philip's hand tightened around mine. Then Ken said the words that turned my blood to ice. "She's claiming Philip tried to force himself on her, and you helped cover it up." The room spun. And I realized the accident didn't end her betrayal. It escalated it. The first time a police officer approached me in a hospital hallway, I felt 12 years old again. Small, guilty by association, bracing to be misunderstood. He was calm, professional. That almost made it worse. He said, "We need to ask you some questions regarding an allegation your mother has made." My mouth went dry. An allegation. He glanced at a small notebook. "She's stating that your husband lured her to a property and behaved inappropriately. She says you were involved." I laughed. One short, disbelieving sound that made the officer's eyebrows lift. "That's not true," I said. "It's the opposite." He looked at me closely. "Do you have any proof?" Philip's jaw flexed, and I saw the decision form in his eyes. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. Then the recorder. My mother had nearly died, and the first thing she did upon waking was attempt to destroy us. Ken leaned in toward the officer. "Before you take my sister's statement," he said, voice controlled, "you should know my mother has a history of targeting her daughter's husbands. This isn't a one-off." The officer's expression shifted slightly. Interest. Caution. I swallowed. "We documented everything." My aunt gasped like I'd confessed to a crime. "You recorded your own mother?" "Yes," I said, steadying my voice. "Because she wouldn't stop." The officer nodded once. "We'll need all of it." And that's when the family truly turned. Not because they believed my mother was innocent, but because they believed a mother deserved protection, even from consequences. My cousin hissed, "You're disgusting." Ken stepped between us. "No," he said. "What's disgusting is what she's done for years. And what you've all ignored." Then my phone buzzed. A notification from our lawyer. Someone Philip had contacted the moment my mother made her claim. One short message. "Do not speak to anyone else. We're preparing for formal charges." The word charges landed like thunder. Because suddenly, this wasn't family drama. It was a courtroom waiting to happen. Within 48 hours, the story my mother spread moved faster than truth. Relatives posted vague statements online about betrayal and a daughter who turned on her own mother. People messaged me, asking if I was okay, but the questions felt loaded. Like they were waiting for me to confess. My mother's version was always the same. She had been invited, then ambushed, then attacked, then forced to flee, leading to the crash. It was ridiculous. It was also dangerously believable to the kind of people who think a mother's tears are evidence. A week later, we got official papers. My mother was pursuing a case. Not just a complaint. She wanted legal action. Protection orders, damages, public validation. Philip read the documents in silence, then handed them to me like they were contaminated. "She's trying to ruin us," he said. I stared at the text. My name, his name, accusations laid out like facts. My stomach churned. "I told you she doesn't respect boundaries," I whispered. Ken came over that night. He brought a folder. "I've got my own receipts," he said, placing it on the table. I blinked. "From what?" He hesitated, then spoke carefully. "From things she said when she thought no one would challenge her." I opened the folder. Inside were copies of emails, old texts, and one handwritten note that made my skin go cold. It was from my mother to one of my ex-husbands. "She doesn't deserve you. But I do." Ken's voice was low. "She did this on purpose. She didn't fall into these affairs. She hunted them." My hands trembled as I turned the page. There was more. A message chain with my second ex-husband where my mother bragged, "She'll never leave me. I always win." I looked up at Ken. "Why didn't you tell me?" His eyes were wet, furious. "Because I was a kid when it started. And then I was scared. And then I was ashamed." He leaned forward. "But I'm not letting her bury you again." Philip exhaled slowly. "Then we fight with truth." Ken nodded. "Good. Because she thinks court will scare you into silence." He tapped the folder. "It won't." Our lawyer, Ms. Sharon Patel, didn't react the way relatives did. She didn't gasp. She didn't moralize. She didn't ask why I let it go on for so long, like endurance was somehow consent. She listened. She watched the messages. She heard the audio. When my mother's voice came through the recording, smooth, suggestive, then furious when rejected, Ms. Patel's expression didn't change. But her eyes sharpened. "This isn't a misunderstanding," she said. "This is a pattern." I swallowed. Can she really win? With lies? Ms. Patel folded her hands. "People win with lies when the truth is undocumented. You did the right thing documenting." Philip shifted. "What happens next?" Ms. Patel spoke with controlled precision. "We respond formally. We request dismissal. And we prepare for the reality that she may double down." "She already has," I said, voice bitter. The family thinks I'm a monster. Ms. Patel glanced at me. Family narratives are powerful. Courts require evidence. Then she turned to Ken. Are you willing to testify? Ken's jaw set. Yes. Ms. Patel nodded. Good. Because testimony from a sibling who has no romantic stake in this changes credibility. I stared at Ken. You don't have to. I do, he interrupted. Because I watched you get blamed for things you didn't do. Over and over. And I stayed quiet because it was easier. He looked down at his hands, then back up. I'm done being easy. When we left the office, my phone buzzed with a message from an aunt. If Mom dies from stress, it's on you. I read it twice. Philip took the phone from my hand gently and turned it face down. She's still controlling the room, he said quietly, even from a hospital bed. I stared out the window. Not in court. Philip nodded, and the steadiness in his voice was the first relief I'd felt in days. Then we stop playing defense, he said. We tell the truth so loudly she can't rewrite it. And for the first time, I believed we could. Because the revenge wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. And the twist my mother never anticipated was simple. She couldn't seduce a man who respected me. She couldn't bully a woman who stopped being afraid of the family's opinion. And she couldn't control the story once the truth was archived, dated, and undeniable.